What's happening, y'all? It's your boy X-Rated. I just jumped off the porch with Dirty Glove Bastard. You know what it is?
But it's just a circumstance where you gotta do what you gotta do. You pull a knife on me, I'm not running. That's how you get your back toe up. It's like straight up, it's called taking a life. I'm not giving nothing. Come and get it, let's go. It is what it is. Once it's going down, it's going down. It's going all the way down. I'm in trouble, I'm all the way in trouble there, and this is happening. I'm getting, the punishment I get gonna be worth it.
Where basically on the cover, there's a picture of you holding a gun to your head, and they're saying that this is the same caliber weapon that was used in the crime. So they're saying this might be the actual gun that was used in the crime.
In early 90s, Sacramento, 17-year-old rapper Anna Ray Brown, better known as X-Rated, emerged from a neighborhood locked in violent conflict. His debut album, created during a tense period of street retaliation, would later be introduced as evidence in a murder trial that transformed the legal use of rap lyrics in courtrooms.
They try to tie in your album cover and the lyrics into this trial. And so they're trying to say, oh, here's a murder weapon on the cover, and here's the lyrics about him preparing to do it on the album. Let's all use this for the case.
Convicted under the felony murder rule for the death of a 42-years-old Patricia Harris and sentenced to 31 years to life, X-Rated refused to fade into obscurity. He recorded albums from payphones, fought legal battles from behind bars, and survived repeated attacks.
It was a situation, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I thought it happened. It was a minute ago. You got stabbed when you was in there.
Yeah.
X-Rated, here in the black pants, is attacked by two knife-wielding inmates who want him dead.
Now here is the kicker. In the early 1990s, South Sacramento was divided. Streets were marked by long-standing rivalries between the 24th Street Crips and nearby blood factions. For teenagers like Anna Ray Brown, life was shaped by these conflicts. Survival meant learning who to trust, how to move safe, and how to navigate a world where one wrong step could be fatal. Music became one of the few ways to tell the truth about life there, to share what was really happening in the neighborhood. By the age of 16, X-Rated had finished his debut album, Psychoactive.
I wrote Psychoactive when I was 14 to 17 years old, and it's stamped as a statement of my psychology that defined me for almost a decade.
The songs told the story of his community conflict, loyalty, revenge, and survival. The album cover, showing his face beside a .38 caliber handgun, reflected the tension he lived with every day. For fans, the album was a raw, honest look at life in the Garden Block. For law enforcement, it would later be seen as evidence, a glimpse into his supposed intentions. Everything changed after a close friend was reportedly killed. On March 15, 1992, X-Rated and a group of associates went to a home in Meadowview looking for rival gang members. Shots were fired. The victim was not who they expected. Patricia Harris, a 42-year-old grandmother, was killed. The next day, X-Rated was arrested, just before Psychoactive officially hit stores. From that moment, his music and the crime were linked, and his life would never be the same.
Man, I was numb. Like, I'm 17, and I think like I worship Garden Block like a god at the time. So like you torn from having a sense of devastation that somebody was harmed, and then also wanting to still be, you know, you gotta survive this experience, and the way you have to do that, you gotta be sturdy.
The case quickly became more than just a murder investigation. Police and prosecutors focused on the album, examining lyrics, imagery, and recordings. What had been intended as a reflection of his surroundings was treated as a confession. X-Rated remained silent. Following the street code, his album became the centerpiece of the case, filling the space left by his refusal to speak. In the months leading up to the trial, the focus on Psychoactive grew. The music was no longer just art. It was treated as proof of guilt. The case raised questions about the line between creative expression and criminal evidence. How much could the law rely on someone's art to determine intent? The answer would shape not only X-Rated's future, but also set a precedent that would echo across courts and the music industry for years to come. After X-Rated's arrest, the focus shifted from the events in the Meadowview home to his music. Psychoactive, completed months before the shooting, was no longer just an album. It became a key part of the prosecution's case. Investigators studied the lyrics line by line, searching for anything they could use to suggest premeditation. The handgun on the cover, meant to reflect the streets he grew up in, was now seen as evidence evidence of violent intent. Prosecutors argued that the album revealed his state of mind. They highlighted verses that described retaliation, territorial disputes, and shootings, presenting them as direct reflections of the night Patricia Harris was killed.
To take a picture and insinuate and argue that this is the murder weapon with doing no ballistics, and then as a result of this picture, just saying, basically he shot somebody, made a song about it, and then used the gun on the album cover, and they just ran with that story for years. And I'm like, yo, they never found a murder weapon. They never did no ballistics. They don't know what firearm harmed anybody. They just made it up, and the media ran with it.
The defense countered that the lyrics were descriptions of a neighborhood shaped by violence, not plans for a specific crime. Despite this, the court allowed selected lyrics as evidence, creating a legal precedent. Rap music, metaphor, and storytelling were being treated as literal proof. The trial also painted a broader picture of gang life in South Sacramento. Officers testified about rivalries, alliances, and retaliation patterns. Being part of a gang was treated as shared responsibility. Any member could be held accountable under the felony murder rule. X-rated silence, guided by the street code, left prosecutors free to present their interpretation without challenge. His music filled the gap, becoming a lens through which jurors viewed his actions. Civil rights advocates and cultural commentators began to weigh in. They warned that using lyrics as evidence could criminalize an entire genre of art. Others argued that his words reflected real involvement. Regardless of opinion, the case signaled a shift in how courts could treat creative expression. Art and action were being blurred, and psychoactive stood at the center of that collision.
They changed the name of the song to fit the narrative, quote my lyrics broken up so that it says what they wanted to say.
Out of context.
Out of context.
By the time opening statements were delivered, the trial had grown beyond one shooting. It became a test of the justice system itself. Could the law treat music as literal evidence? How far could prosecutors go when art and reality intersected? The answers would have lasting consequences for hip-hop, for artists, and for the rights of people whose work drew directly from the environments they lived in. For X-Rated, the album that had once been a personal statement of life in Garden Block had transformed into a legal weapon against him.
They take my song and say it's about this incident that it had nothing to do with. They changed the name to The Murder and call it The Murder, even though that was the intro.
What had begun as a reflection of survival and identity now defined the terms of his trial. In the weeks that followed, the courtroom would weigh each word, each line, against his future. After his conviction, X-Rated entered the California Department of Corrections, facing a sentence of 31 years to life. Prison was designed to isolate, control, and erase influence. But for him, it became a place where his music and reputation took on new dimensions. He refused to disappear. Even behind bars, he found ways to maintain his voice and presence in the world outside. Early on, X-Rated began recording over the facility's payphones. He used one line for his voice and another for the instrumental beat, carefully layering tracks to create full songs. The audio quality was raw and imperfect, but the content resonated. The lyrics carried the same intensity and honesty that had been at the heart of Psychoactive. Fans and underground networks circulated these recordings widely, giving X-Rated a reputation that grew even as he remained physically confined. His musical output did not go unnoticed within the prison. Corrections staff, other inmates, and gang-affiliated groups all took note. His notoriety became both a shield and a threat. Some respected his ability to continue producing work, while others saw him as a target. Around 2010, X-Rated was ambushed and stabbed 7 times in a violent, orchestrated attack. Allegedly, this assault involved inmates influenced by staff. He survived, but the incident underscored the dangerous environment he navigated daily. Despite the attack, he continued recording and releasing music, demonstrating resilience under extreme pressure. By the late 90s, technological improvements allowed him to produce higher quality recordings. Smuggled equipment, including a DAT recorder, enabled him to work with clearer sound while still inside maximum security facilities. Albums like The Unforgiven, Volume 1 showcased this shift. Combining creativity with strategic planning, X-Rated leveraged attorney-client privileges, careful communication, and contacts on the outside to maintain production. Each album generated income, even as state authorities attempted to block the proceeds. The California Attorney General tried to seize earnings under the Son of Sam law, claiming that X-Rated profited from criminal activity. X-Rated challenged the case, arguing that his work was artistic expression, not literal crime. The case advanced to the California Supreme Court, which ruled in his favor. The decision clarified that metaphorical or fictional lyrics could not automatically be used as evidence of criminal intent. This victory reinforced his legal understanding and secured his rights as an incarcerated artist. Inside prison, X-Rated's influence extended beyond music. Other inmates observed his strategies for survival, communication, and creative output. His notoriety became instructional, demonstrating how intelligence, planning, and persistence could protect and empower someone even within a harsh system. Over time, X-Rated established a unique position as a convicted teenager whose art challenged legal precedent, provoked institutional tension, and survived direct physical threats. By the end of this period, X-Rated had transformed incarceration into a platform. His voice, once tied solely to street survival, now carried legal, cultural, and artistic significance. He had shown that creativity could endure under confinement, and that expression could be a form of resistance, survival, and identity in a world determined to silence him. After his conviction, X-Rated entered the California prison system with a 31 years to life sentence. From the start, his notoriety shaped how he was treated. Fellow inmates and staff alike recognized him not just as a convicted teenager, but as an artist whose work had gained national attention. Prison hierarchy dictated influence and risk, and X-Rated quickly learned that visibility could be as dangerous as it was advantageous. Determined to continue his craft, he began recording over the facility's payphones. One line carried his vocals, while another played instrumental tracks. The resulting low-fidelity recordings, smuggled out to underground networks, established him as a prolific voice from behind bars. Success drew attention, sparking admiration, envy, and outright hostility from other inmates.
While I'm in this environment, I'm like the most investigated dude in that environment, and all these people that want to know how I did it. Some people who wouldn't even speak to each other, but I'm an anomaly, and they all want to, what's up, X? What's happening? Bill, you don't even with my people, right?
The danger became tangible in a violent incident when X-Rated was ambushed and stabbed 7 times during a coordinated attack. Allegedly, other prisoners were influenced by staff or rival factions. He survived, but the encounter underscored the hazards of prominence within the prison system. Following the attack, periods of solitary confinement were imposed, not only for his safety, but as an administrative response to his influence and ongoing conflicts. Despite the threats, X-Rated continued producing music. By the late 1990s, smuggled digital equipment, including DAT recorders, allowed him to release albums with studio-level sound quality. He leveraged attorney-client privileges and supportive contacts to protect his work from confiscation, navigating restrictions with careful strategy. Each release reinforced his status both inside and outside prison, drawing attention from fans and authorities alike. Parallel to his musical activity, X-Rated faced legal pressure from the state. California's Attorney General attempted to invoke the Son of Sam law to seize profits from his work, claiming that his artistic output derived from criminal activity. X-Rated challenged the application, arguing that lyrics and recordings were expressions of art, not literal confessions. The California Supreme Court ruled in his favor, affirming the rights of incarcerated artists to retain earnings from creative work. Throughout this period, X-Rated's presence became a model for other inmates, a demonstration of survival, strategy, and resilience under extreme constraints. He managed visibility, influence, and production while navigating both physical danger and bureaucratic restrictions. By the end of this phase, he had established a unique position, a convicted teenager whose music, produced under confinement, challenged legal precedent, provoked institutional tension, and survived direct physical threats. His story exemplified how creativity and controversy could coexist behind bars, shaping both personal legacy and broader discussions about artistic expression. While recording from prison, X-Rated faced mounting legal pressure over the profits generated by his music. The California Attorney General argued that his albums were derived from criminal activity and sought to seize his earnings under the Son of Sam law. Authorities framed the music as a direct extension of the violent acts for which he had been convicted, positioning it as evidence of ongoing culpability.
They take my song and say it's about this incident that it had nothing to do with. They changed the name to The Murder and call it The Murder, even though that was the intro with the pizza man thing with me and Brother Lynch on, where we pull up, pretend to be the pizza man, dude open the door, we gun him down. That's The Murder.
On the cover, there's a picture of you holding a gun to your head, and they're saying that this is the same caliber weapon that was used in the crime. So they're saying this might be the actual gun that was used in the crime.
X-Rated challenged the claim, asserting that his lyrics were artistic expression, not literal accounts of crime. He maintained that the creative work reflected experiences and environment rather than planned actions. The case moved through the courts, drawing national attention and igniting debates on free speech, artistic rights, and the legal treatment of narrative content. Legal commentators and civil rights advocates warned against equating metaphorical expression with actionable evidence, noting the broader implications for artists across genres. The California Supreme Court ultimately ruled in X-Rated's favor. The decision confirmed that incarcerated artists could profit legally from their work, establishing a clear distinction between creative expression and criminal conduct. The ruling further clarified that fictional or metaphorical material could not automatically serve as proof of intent. This verdict became a landmark moment in both entertainment law and the rights of incarcerated creators, providing a precedent that would influence future cases involving artistic output. During this period, X-Rated maintained close correspondence with attorneys, tracking legal developments that could affect his music and parole eligibility. His strategic approach to navigating the legal system demonstrated careful planning and awareness, turning confinement into a space where rights could be actively protected rather than passively endured. By applying legal knowledge to his situation, he transformed challenges into opportunities, safeguarding both creative freedom and personal interests. The Supreme Court victory elevated his status beyond music. Fans, inmates, and industry figures recognized him not only as a rapper, but as a figure capable of maneuvering within complex legal frameworks. His case became a reference point for other artists, highlighting how knowledge, persistence, and advocacy could intersect with creativity. By the end of this phase, X-Rated had converted notoriety into influence, demonstrating that institutional limitations could be leveraged into a platform for legal and artistic resilience. After more than 2 decades in prison, X-Rated's parole process became a decisive moment in his life. The proceedings reflected not only his rehabilitation, but also the careful support he had cultivated over the years. Key allies, including Eric and Lyle Menendez, provided testimony to the parole board, emphasizing his dedication to education, personal development, and consistent engagement in constructive programs. Their letters underscored a disciplined and conscientious individual, capable of contributing positively to society.
Life parole.
I was on lifer parole, so when I got out, I was still a lifer.
Okay.
And you're still a lifer during parole. So you run a red light, that cop having a bad morning,
They're gonna
you go right back to prison with a life sentence as a lifer, and they'll see you when they want to figure out whether or not you should be released or kept.
The board reviewed decades of X-Rated's conduct, from his creative output behind bars to his participation in rehabilitative programs. His extensive musical production demonstrated persistence, focus, and an ability to channel energy productively despite confinement. Evaluators weighed the consistency of his behavior, disciplinary record, and evidence of intellectual and emotional growth. While his prior notoriety and high-profile case complicated deliberations, the breadth of his efforts toward reform proved influential. In September 2018, the board granted parole. X-Rated left prison adopting his birth name, Honoré Vachon, signaling a deliberate separation from the persona associated with violence, controversy, and the legal battles that had defined his early life. The release was covered widely in media outlets, portraying him as both a survivor and a symbol of resilience, a figure who had navigated extreme adversity while retaining agency over his future. Re-entering society required careful adaptation. The world had changed drastically over his 26 years of incarceration, including shifts in culture, technology, and the music industry. Honoré focused on balancing artistic pursuits with personal responsibility, using his experience to inform a constructive post-prison identity. He remained mindful of the scrutiny that accompanied his story, choosing to leverage his notoriety to advocate for legal reform, mentor others, and pursue creative projects without repeating the patterns that had once placed him behind bars. By embracing accountability, education, and artistic focus, Anare emerged from prison as a figure of transformation. Parole marked not only freedom from confinement, but also the start of a new chapter, one defined by purpose, legacy, and the opportunity to shape his narrative on his own terms. After his release, Anare approached life with intention. The first steps were about rebuilding his career, his public image, and his sense of self. Signing with Strange Music, he returned to the studio, but the violent persona of X-Rated remained behind bars. His music still carried intensity and insight, but it reflected growth, perspective, and accountability. Publicly, he acknowledged the past, expressing remorse and offering apologies to the Harris family. These gestures were small but significant, signaling a willingness to confront the consequences of actions he had once taken lightly. Beyond personal reconciliation, Anare's story became a platform for change. In 2022, California passed AB 2799, the Decriminalizing Artistic Expression Act. The law directly limited the ability of prosecutors to treat rap lyrics as literal confessions unless clearly demonstrable. The trials and incarceration that once defined his life had now shaped legislation, marking a rare intersection where individual experience influenced systemic reform. Anare had lived through the consequences of blurred lines between art and law, and his journey helped clarify them for others. His legacy is complex, human, and unmistakable. He survived prison violence, endured solitary confinement, and navigated institutional restrictions while creating music that resonated far beyond cell walls. He challenged the state legally and culturally, turning confinement into a stage for artistic and intellectual expression. The street-born resilience that once put him in harm's way was now a tool for survival, strategy, and advocacy.
I don't want no kid out there to think for 1 second that it's necessary as a rite of passage to go to prison in order to hit a milestone. I think what I had was isolation, solitude, and exposure to the right materials.
From the divided streets of South Sacramento to maximum security prisons, and finally to freedom, Anare's story reflects both the weight of past choices and the possibilities of reinvention. He transformed notoriety into influence, struggle into insight, and confinement into opportunity. Today, Anare Brown stands as a human example of redemption, not perfect, but profoundly determined. His life reminds us that accountability, persistence, and creative expression can coexist, even in the most extreme circumstances, and that a person's past, no matter how turbulent, does not have to define the entirety of their future.